City Commission meeting to order. It's Monday, May 22nd. Would you please stand for the invocation and the pledge? Heavenly Father, we ask that you look over this meeting tonight, that you give us the wisdom to make good decisions for the city of Leesburg. We do this in your name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight we have no proclamations. We do have a presentation, so I'm going to turn it over to Al.
Yeah, just cool. Thank you, Brandy. A little bit out of the unordinary. As we're moving into budget presentation, normally we tackle these issues in the budget process. But because this year is a little bit different with the CBAs, with some personnel issues and the like, I wanted to give the commission ample time to kind of ponder where we're at. As you know, and we discussed it at the visioning session a little bit, one of the goals that the commission is considering is how to ensuring that our personnel pay classifications and our pay across the board for all city employees is a priority and is competitive. Several months back, probably back in the fall, Commissioner Cannell asked me to look into this issue as well by starting a salary survey. That salary survey, it's not here in the public, it is a public record, but I included it in the packet. So we did an overall survey of our personnel wages. And so the purpose here is just to get you updated so you have this information, and there'll be several meetings where we talk about it. So this is not an action item tonight, but an informational item, and that's why I stuck it on the presentations. So in any case, as a result of the comprehensive salary survey, basically what we found is that the city's general employees are behind. And as you know, we have three classification of employees. We have the general employees, which is all folks who work for the City of Leesburg. And then we have the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association, which is our sworn officers. And we have the IFFF, the International Association of Firefighters, which is our duly sworn and firefighters. In the police department, it's all ranked below sergeant to the entry-level officer, and in the fire department, it's all firefighters at lieutenant and below. So what the results of the survey it showed, in short, was because of the private sector and the public sector quickly moving to $15 an hour before the recommended February or 2026 timeframe, our entry-level rate of about $12.74 is behind. And as you comb through our ranks, what we see is several positions that are open, basically in the maintenance worker positions, in other administrative positions, and this needs to be addressed. And so if you tackle bringing up that baseline from the $12.74 to $15 an hour pay range to be competitive, you then have to face a compression issue. Second, we also found that our wages in the police department are again out of competition with regional departments. The magic number for an entry-level police officer is moving to the $60,000 a year range. Now, each police department is different because of the hours worked, 24-hour shifts, 12-hour shifts, but it's really the $60,000 mark at our rate, which is $22.10. I think I remembered that correctly. $22.10 is hours worked for the police department, and it's the $60,000 number is what's important. With the IAFF, they were not too bad off, but they were slightly under the regional range. So those were the issues. The next slides will be our recommendation moving forward in fiscal year 24 of how to address that in the upcoming budget process. So Brandy, if you would flip the slide for me. Go back one. You already hit it. So each Each unit has a different way to address how to compensate in a better manner for the city. So first, in the general employees, we have several pay grades that go from a level of 112 to 142. So we need to increase. So I mentioned previously that 1274. That's the entry level rate at the initial step of our pay scale, which is 112. So the recommendation is to increase the entry level at 112 to $15 an hour. Then for each step after that, so 113 would start at $15 an hour plus 4%. So each step from 112 to 142 increases 4%. Overall, it's about a 20% increase as far as the step plan goes. It's not a 20% increase in your pocket, but because of the significant jump over to the $2 an hour to the $15 an hour rate, that's where you've got to catch up, and that's where the compression hits. When you look at the organization overall, by jumping to $15 an hour for entry wages, we've probably got somewhere in the neighborhood of about 30 employees that then get a significant increase, but then that causes a compression issue throughout the organization to about the level of about a 133 pay grade. So how do we address this? We want a fair and equitable way to address pay and benefits for the city. So we devised a concept whereby everybody is adjusted to their pay range that they currently are in, and then they get 1% per year of service for a longevity bump. So for those employees who, for example, right now might make only about $13 an hour, they would be at a 112 pay grade getting $15 an hour. There may be an employee who's in a 133 pay category, so they go immediately to the beginning of the 133s, and then they get that longevity bonus of 1% per year of service. And then if you follow that process throughout, you then address compression. So then there is still some senior employees who start to get up into the supervisory above the 133 pay grades, who then they're a flat 5% increase is better than the formulaic approach. So the recommendation becomes to increase the pay rate to 15, adjust the pay scales by 4% steps over the several steps, apply a formulaic approach to consider longevity for those long-time employees of 1% per years of service, or 5%, whatever is greater. So that's how we will be recommending the pay scale for you coming in fiscal year 24. Brandy, next slide. We also sat down recently and we met with the PBA, the Police Benevolence Association. This is their third year of the contract. The third year of the contract also requires that we start negotiations prior to June 1st. So that's, again, we've got some of these extemporaneous pressures that is kind of pushing this decision a little quicker than the fiscal year because of processes that we have to follow. Long story short, with the police department, it's about a 16% overall increase for the police to get this entry raised up to $60,000. With the PBA, we tentatively agreed to a deal whereby the entry level rate, instead of the $59,120, will be $60,000, right on the number. Officers with at least 6 months of service will get an extra 0.5% of the hourly rate, which will actually make their pay $60,300. So there's some cushion between newly employed, and then everybody above that number would get a 16% raise. Right now we have 72 programmed officers. There's a shortage of about 7 positions. One of the ways to make this affordable for the city is to freeze the remaining 7 positions and phase them back in. 4 positions would be unfrozen in April of 24, and then the last 3 would be unfrozen in October of 24, which is fiscal year 25. And then that becomes affordable as villages' tax revenues come in, with an ultimate goal to build to about 90 officers. IAFF, next slide. We presented one category to the IFF, which was about a 7.5% across the board increase for those union members. They opted to do something a little bit different, which for us, we estimate is going to be about a 7.5% increase. So they asked for the 5% across the board increase in exchange for the concept of all hours worked. So all hours worked means is that if you have taken you earned PTO, paid time off during your scheduled shift, but then are called in because of other outages or shortages. Right now, the policy is that we pay you at regular time. They requested a payment of time and a half, which matches the PBA. We estimated that would be an increase to the payroll of about $66,000, which the $66,000 plus the 5% is the 7.5%. So they felt like that was a better benefit for their members. For us, the cost differential was the same, so we tentatively agreed to that. We also agreed to an increase in the paramedic incentive pay from about $12,190 to $13,000, which makes our paramedic incentive pay the highest in the county. The closest next would be probably about $12,700 at either county or and Mount Dora pay at that rate. So I think that's a good incentive that you want. About 80% of the things the fire department does is those EMS calls. So ensuring that we have competitive paramedic pay is very important for us. As far as the tentative agreements now, as the CBA process goes, after management has reviewed those, then we move into the ratification votes. The ratification vote for the PBA is scheduled for the end of this month, next week, and then the IFF will have their ratification votes very first part of June, so that by June 12th, your consideration for a ratification vote will be on your desk at the next regular meeting. Okay, so I threw out a lot of numbers. Overall, it's about a 10% increase. We've looked at 5% increase. That leaves the general fund in a deficit right now of about 1.2 million. That's an M, not a B, $million. Which is nonetheless still for the general fund a considerable increase, and that's based on assumptions that will come to fruition. One is the first day, June 1, when the tax appraiser numbers come out for what your fiscal year 24 numbers and tax revenue will look like. But the second is still that the $1.2 million deficit. We assumed a 10% increase in tax revenue, which is close to what last year was. We were about 13% last year. So hopefully we'll see about that same. So I think at this stage it's a reasonable number. As you all know, when you meet at the workshop in July, we'll have actually the first stroke and a revision by the time you meet. But long story short, where we really think to make up the short call is we'll be recommending that you increase the fire assessment fee this year. The fire assessment fee is done on an annual basis, and it's considered an assessment. So, you know, I know if it walks like a duck, looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a tax. So there is that feeling there with the assessment, but it is an assessment. So the process for it is a little bit different. You will need to pass a resolution similar to the DR 420, which you do in July for the fire assessment fee. We've done that every year, but essentially that needs to get passed in June, which says the assessment may be up to X dollars. So that resolution, along with the DR 420, which comes out in July, will go on folks' trim notices, which come out in August, so that then in September you approve final assessment for the fire assessment, and then you would approve the final millage rate and then the final budget. So the pinch that we're in a little bit is the consideration of approving pay increases that actually pin you into a deficit. That's a predicament to a degree, but also remember, with new villages growth on the horizon, if we work ourselves into a situation where we ultimately don't increase the fire assessment fee, you will have new tax revenue that will cover that deficit by fiscal year 25, and you'll have cash to cover the deficit for 24. And because of the way the timing of the things back up, I don't like the timing, but we do need to consider this in relatively short time. The pinch that we have is the lack of officers, the lack of maintenance workers, and a need to keep up. And we do have the cash in fiscal year 23, which is the current year, to maybe even consider giving raises early at the last quarter of 23 so that we can get some folks hired. Because I do think one of the things we're starting to see a little bit around town is some lack of maintenance. The police department definitely feels it too, with shortages of personnel. So the sooner we can get the raises, the better we can accomplish that. Feel comfortable that you have the cash because of the shortages in the general fund, and it's just a matter of how we want to approach that shortfall for fiscal year 24. I don't think that using the cash going forward is the best policy, because what you do then is you take about a third of what you anticipate in village revenues to fill the bucket. So that will lessen our ability to do other capital projects, new programming, or that will affect us in trying to establish the goal of getting 90 officers by in out fiscal years. So I'll have more numbers and details on that. I will tell you, though, that I think there is a caveat that if you do increase the fire assessment fee, and it's an increase from $87 to $165 per year, so it's about an $80 increase, which is about 90%. So it's a considerable increase. But the benefits that you have from that is you isolate those fire costs to an assessment, so that then your other general revenues can pay for other general services. First off, second, you then I slipped. Then you assess at a rate that captures about 80% of what you can capture by statute. Right now, we're assessing at only about a 40% level, and your assessment then is still I'm not going to say considerably lower, but regionally, $165 per ERU fire assessment fee is still one of the lowest ones in Lake County. Leesburg assesses pretty much third to the bottom. Eustis and Claremont still do not have a fire assessment fee. Claremont's a little bit different because their tax base is about double what ours is. So they have a little more buying power in their ad valorem than we do. So moving it to that amount is not an unreasonable amount. And you'll also have a couple other things to offset it. I do anticipate, we spoke a couple meetings ago about the power cost adjustment. I do anticipate that the power cost adjustment will be down maybe midsummer, no later than October 1. And I think a minimum, you'll see that come down at $30 a month. So that's $360 a year for the average consumer. And then that'll also help out the commercial folks on the commercial side who've really been hit hard by the power cost adjustment. So they'll see that down. So I think you'll still have a negative total out to the taxpayer utility user if you do increase the assessments. The third thing too is if the assessments come back in on the tax side are higher than the 10%, then I think you could probably look at maybe even lowering the millage rate. And I think in the future, that's probably where we want to be too as the new villages growth comes in. That's really the end of the report for you. I know there's some big things in there, but I thought it was important to bring up publicly to give you some consideration. No action on that tonight. Again, just wanted to set up the stage, and the issue will be again on your agenda June 12th to talk about at the next regular meeting.
Thank you, Al. Okay, moving forward, we'll move to item 4, public comments. This section is reserved for members of the public to bring up matters of concern or opportunities for praise. Issues brought up will not be discussed in detail at this meeting. Issues will either be referred to the proper staff or will be scheduled for consideration at a future City Commission meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. If you come forward, please state your name and give us your address. Do we have any public comment?
Good evening. My name is Athea Lindsay. My residential address is 1350 Pamela Street. I am the owner of Cotton's Kitchen on Pine Street, 305 Pine Street. The reason why I stand before you today is because I know that the construction is coming to Pine Street, and it's going to have a major effect on not just, well, more on my business than any other businesses down there. And I wanted to know, is there anything that you all could do to kind of help not just me, but the other business owners down on Pine financially, because it's really going to have a big impact. I'm there 5 days a week. That's my livelihood. I have employees. I'm the only business down there that has employees, and it's their livelihood also. So that's really all I need to say. I can't go into detail. I only got 3 minutes, but yeah, just that is why I am here. So hopefully at the next meeting or sometime or another, I could talk to somebody.
I'll maybe look in.
We will. Obviously, this issue came up. We had a citizen meeting. I guess that was Wednesday last week.
Yes, sir.
Where the issue was. The city is going to try to provide an accommodation for the businesses where the businesses can remain open, albeit it's not the best situation, which we understand because front of businesses are closed. But this is the other side of the equation when we do beautification and improvement projects. I think from a financial standpoint, I did offer utility billing assistance for the employees, so that we wouldn't cut you off in that time frame and kind of keep a rolling balance, and after the construction, work payment plans to pay that back. The direct question was a financial contribution, the remuneration to the businesses. That is an unordinary request. I do believe I owe you a phone call.
Yes, I
and I'll
called you.
get
You
that
ain't
back
called
to
me
you.
back. Yeah.
My apologies. So you'll hear from me, and we'll do more as we move forward.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right.
Any other public comment? Okay, let's move on to item 5. That's the consent agenda. Routine items are placed on the consent agenda to expedite the meeting. If the commission or staff wish to discuss any item, the procedure is as follows. 1, pull the item or items from the consent agenda. 2, vote on the remaining items with 1 roll call vote. 3, discuss each pulled item and vote by roll call. Are there any items the commission wishes to pull? Pulling no items, can we get a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve all items on consent agenda.
Second?
Roll call?
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Eastman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay. Got to go through a lot of stuff here all of a sudden. Okay, so now. Okay, at this point, we're going to be moving into item 6, our public hearings and non-routine items. 6A is the second reading of ordinances. Because this is a second reading, it's a quasi-judicial process. Grant, I didn't check with you first, but I just want to read to everybody kind of what this process is going to be so you'll know. Grant's going to ask you to stand if you're going to speak and swear in everyone that wants to speak. First, after we swear in, first we will hear a staff presentation, our staff's presentation. Then we will hear the petitioner give a presentation. At that point, we will hear public comment, 3 minutes per person, okay? We do ask that fresh ideas, just saying the same thing over and over isn't going to do everybody, much good. So please, if what you want to say has already been said, bring something else. At that point, we will have rebuttal from the staff, and then give an opportunity for rebuttal from the petitioner. And then at that point, the commission will talk it over, and there will be a vote. So your opportunity to talk is going to be during that public comment. We're not going to have comment after that. Okay, everybody got it? So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Grant.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If anyone's present tonight who wishes to speak on the Treasure Trove matters or the Sundance matters, if you would please stand and raise your right hand so you could be sworn in, please. All right. Do you swear or affirm that all testimony you'll give tonight will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. All right. Thank you all. Mr. Mayor?
All righty. So we need a motion to introduce items 6A, 1, 2, and 3.
6A, 1, 2, and 3 be read by title only.
6A1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 55 plus minus acres, being generally located west of County Road 44 and south of East Treasure Island Avenue, lying in Section 1, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 5 and providing an effective date. 6A2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing 55 plus minus acres from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg Estate Residential for property generally located west of County Road 44 and south of East Treasure Island Avenue, lying in Section 1, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 55 plus minus acres from Lake County A Agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow a single-family residential subdivision for a property generally located west of County Road 44 and south of East Treasure Island Avenue, lying in Section 1, Township 19 South, Range 25 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Move for approval.
Second. All right. So Dan, can we hear from you?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Dan Miller, Planning and Zoning. This is for the Treasure Trove annexation, large-scale comp plan, and plan unit development. The project itself consists of 55 plus or minus acres. Future land use request from Lake County Rural Transition to City of Leesburg Estate Residential. On the zoning, the request is from Lake County Agriculture to City of Leesburg Plan Unit Development. Again, 55.45 plus or minus acres west of County Road 44 and south of East Treasure Island Avenue. The request before you is 110 units at a density of 1.98 units per acre. There are 50 by 120 lots for 6,000 square feet and 60 by 120 lots for 7,200 square feet. Within the PUD zoning, there's 35% open space. The only uses permitted are single family. There are design and architectural standards for all homes, dark sky lighting requirements, which, as you know, are the shielding and directing of light inward, gutters on all four sides for houses with lots smaller than 60 feet wide. There are landscape buffers around the property, trees required in each yard. The wetlands are protected. Irrigation controls to require the use of Bermuda, Bahia, or zoysia grass, which is the Florida-friendly landscaping. 0.71 acres of recreation area is also required. To give you some quick history, in July of 22, the Planning Commission looked at this project and recommended disapproval due to density, access, wetlands, and traffic concerns. It went to the City Commission for its first reading in August of 2022. It was sent to FDEO, the Department of Economic Opportunity. No comments were returned. The second reading was on November 14. The City Commission requested that the developer revise the plan and come back to the City Commission, requested that the density be lowered, wetlands not be disturbed, and Treasure Island Road be used for emergency access only. The second reading came on February 27. The City Commission requested that because the plan had been substantially changed from what the Planning Commission had originally seen in August, that it was to be sent back to the Planning Commission. It was sent back to the Planning Commission for the April meeting, and the Planning Commission again denied the request by a vote of 5-2. So we are here for your second reading. The major changes that have been made to the project, basically gone from 155 units as you originally saw it to 110. Some of the entrance and road, and then the density has been changed. And I believe Mr. Jerome Hennon and a representative, I did not get to meet him, from Lowndes Cantor Law Firm is here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any question for?
Yeah, I have a question for you real quick, Dan.
Yes, sir.
Do you know the basis on why the Planning and Zoning Commission turned it down? What was their concern?
It was same thing, wetlands, traffic, public opposition.
Okay.
Any other questions for the staff? Okay, can we hear from the petitioner now?
Good evening, Logan Opsahl, Lowndes Law Firm, 215 North Eola Drive. Good to be with the commission today. I have a PowerPoint, but I'm going to save some of it for the rebuttal. I just want to do a couple high-level slides, if we may. Thanks to Dan for the timeline. I know this project's been around for some time. We have with us today the developer, the traffic engineer, project engineer, so we can answer any of the specific questions that the commission has. But I just want to give a quick high-level overview. I'll go through just a couple slides, and I'll reserve some time to answer any of your questions and respond to some of the folks we'll hear from tonight. Don't check, it may not be on. I think there's an online switch on. Sorry. That's it. Thanks. So again, this is 110 variable size lots that are being proposed, down from upwards of 150. The developer has worked with the city and the concerns of the residents to create a site plan presented to you as an intended use of the property that meets those concerns. We've heard about the wetland, the traffic. Your staff has presented to you that there is an ample level of capacity on these roads, and that we would not be impacting the level of service of these roads. We have provided a traffic study, and the traffic engineer is here today to provide those same conclusions. Upon working with the city and the feedback from the residents, we are not proposing impacts to any of the wetlands. I know the environment has been brought up as a concern. I believe even there was a topic of putting in septic tanks. Again, those things don't seem to correlate when we're proposing not impacting wetlands for environmental purposes. We don't want to provide septic tanks for those very same reasons. This is just the project process, the timeline of events Dan went through, so I'm just going to breeze over those. This is the site plan for you to see. We went through a couple iterations of these again to meet the comments provided by the city and the staff, and also satisfy some of the feedback we've received from the residents. This highlights a few of those items. Access, moving the access road down south on County Road 444, providing for additional open space, about 50% of open space on this site plan. Again, no impacts to wetlands. Again, reducing lots at the city's request down to 110 from our second submittal. So I just wanted to provide a couple high-level slides so you can see that we've been working with the city and trying to work and collaborate with the residents. Appreciate their time and them being here today to discuss, and I'll just reserve my time to answer any specific questions and be able to respond to a few of the things we'll hear today.
Your entrance on the 44, I thought in the PUD it was much further to the south.
Yes, sir. This is per the county's comment. Thank you. This is the latest and greatest. Thank you.
Any questions for the petitioner? we'll hear from the public.
Thank you.
Larry Mott, 8700 East Treasure Island Avenue. Lived in Lake County a good long time. I have been told that this project is a go. Well, it can be. I've been wondering why P&Z turned it down twice, and we're still here. I don't know why, but I might have found the answer earlier in a presentation that if we're $1.2 million in debt, I understand why we need the other taxation problems. As far as moving the entrance down south, he suggested that that's our suggestion. It wasn't. The county told them they had to move it because it was too close to the intersection. That's neither here nor there. I'm just pointing that out. I've built more houses in Lake County. I love Lake County. I think most of you know I have built a lot of homes here in Lake County, built a lot of subdivisions. They have been wonderful to me. This one here, I'm not against the subdivision. I'm just against the density. Everybody has been repeated and repeated, 55 plus or minus acres. They've got 55 plus or minus acres with the wetlands. I know. You're going to tell me, well, that's doable. They can figure the wetlands. But the density is only on like maybe 26 acres. So I just wanted to point that out, that it's truly not, it's deceptive.
But we're going to have to pass out some, basically my presentation is going to be passed out to y'all. I just want to make a note of here before I start my deal here, is that under the number 1 there that you see on the screen there is a note telling the neighbors across the street that they're going to have to give up their property if any widening on that road is going to go, and that's illegal. Right off, it's unconstitutional. All right, so number 1, the following contour map illustrates why neighbors have valid concerns about an increase in flooding once that stand of trees at the corner East Treasure Island Avenue and County Road 44 are removed, only to be replaced by impervious concrete surfaces such as building slabs, driveways, roadways, and sidewalks. As the below contour map indicates, and it's all on one map here for this one, the highest point of the Treasure Trove parcel is at northeast corner at 80 feet, and as you move further west and south, you'll note that the elevation rapidly drops down to 65 feet, and finally just south of Treasure Island Road, where there is migration of water to this day, drops down to 60 feet. And it's not actually hit rainy season yet. While these drops in elevation are significant and will definitely direct runoff properties to the south and the west, what's more concerning is that there's nothing that can be done to stop the control runoff once it enters the bayhead that is referenced in the map below as Wetlands 3. Not only will the surrounding properties be impacted by devastating flooding, Treasure Island Road, one of only 2 access points to Treasure Trove and Treasure Island communities, could also be rendered impassable, creating a safety concern in the event that emergency services are needed in the area or an evacuation is necessary. In addition to the stormwater runoff, we are concerned that building on top of the underground river, which acts as a conduit transferring water between Lake Eustis and Lake Griffin, will displace underground water, sending it into the neighboring properties, thereby significantly increasing the flooding risk due to the surrounding community. While this presentation focuses on the potential for the catastrophic flooding if this keystone property is developed, as you're going to hear tonight, the neighbors also have serious concerns about the impact of adding more traffic on the already deadly County Road 44 corridor. Since Treasure Trove parcels touch the El Morada Marsh Rural Protection Area, and the proposed development will double the population of the neighboring Treasure Cove and Treasure Island communities, we're asking that you protect this unique rural community by denying the application, as has been done twice by the Planning and Zoning Board of Leesburg. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Alan Chen, 8010 Treasure Island Road. On the second page, I just want to focus on several points. One is housing density, Larry touched upon, runoff and capture, the engineers, so-called experts, and compare this property to others and don't rubber stamp the approval. So on the next page, for housing density, at the P&Z, Hennon's attorney repeatedly mentioned that the density was a low 2 dwellings per acre. At the same meeting, we indicated that that definition was incorrect because, as we mentioned here on the top right image, half of the land is unusable. So right off the bat, you should really discount that half land that's unusable. I know the definition states the entire property, but essentially that's not usable. So really, the density increases to about 4 dwellings per acre. And then given, if you look at it, these tiny 1/7 acre plots, the density locally is really 7 dwellings per acre. They also showed sketches of houses shown with lands and trees, made it look beautiful. But these are going to be next to each other. You can't even put a tree in between the houses, I'm sure. Okay, so I think that was misleading for them to indicate that. P&Z board members picked up on this redefinition. They actually brought it up during their final deliberation prior to the vote to deny. So the question is, do we really want to approve a housing plan that appears to contain high-density, cookie-cutter housing, given the tiny 1/7 acre plots and small 50 or 60 feet widths? Okay, on the next page, runoff from the development. I also presented this at the P&Z, where I had a table of runoff coefficients. Currently, this property is full of pine trees, and the runoff would be about 10%. But once you develop it, it increases to about 40%. And the roadways are 90% impermeable. So Hennon's lawyer at the P&Z also indicated there won't be any runoff due to the way the property and the roads would be constructed per their engineering experts. So given a significant drop of 20 feet, which Ray mentioned, how can we guarantee no runoffs and total capture into the small 2 retention ponds that are listed here? And then with our summer rains and torrential downpours, with these 2 retention ponds, can they capture all of that runoff? Okay, on the next page is a contour map of the area showing the drop in the arrow, which is the 15 to 20 foot drop off. General runoff is going to go in that direction. They can contour, bring in lots of fill, but that wouldn't necessarily eliminate the issue. So do we really want the runoff with pesticides, poisons, fertilizers, weed killers, oils, gases to run off into and compromise the wetlands? Next page is on the engineers and developers. So despite all the promises, it is the developer's greed that drives this project. He's here to make as much money as possible. They talk about the concessions they've made, but that's primarily due to the fact that they can't use the wetlands in the first place. In addition, this is not your typical property. And as a senior director of engineering with 2 advanced degrees and 3 different disciplines, and I oversee 40 engineers in 3 countries, many who have PhDs and advanced master's degrees. I know that engineers make mistakes. In fact, that's how we learn and adjust. So this property is very unusual. They will learn here. So these
I need you to wrap it up, sir.
Yes. So they're making a calculated risk in the planning. So how do we know that this is not going to be made to minimum standards that will prevent or create another Orlo Vista event to this neighborhood? And then this, my last page, sorry. As you can see, this property is in a bad location. It has terrible traffic patterns, especially during school rush hour, and multiple deaths within a plus or minus 2 mile length, containing significant wetlands and partially resides in the floodplain. We presented an alternative plan which was rejected by the developer. As we've dealt with many PUDs to date, I will venture to guess that most are much better suited for development, but few, if any, are worse than this one. So please consider all of this, follow the wise recommendation of your planning zoning board, and vote to deny. Thank you.
Before I speak, should I get sworn in? Nature called while I was.
All right, anybody else come in late that wants to provide any testimony tonight? All right, very good. Do you swear or affirm all testimony you'll give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you, sir.
Hello. I'm Michael Chen. I live at 8010 Treasure Island Road in Leesburg, Florida. I would like you all to consider this map, which I call Treasure Trove Island in a sea of Lake County. As you can see, the Treasure Trove property in this area is surrounded almost entirely by county properties and roads. In fact, the only way to get to Treasure Trove is via county roads. Its only connection to the city is technically through this tenuous bit across the county road to another city property that is also located within the county region. Many of Treasure Trove's neighbors, all county lands lived on by county residents in their county homes, are seeing increased flooding downhill from the Treasure Trove property. As has been said before, this wasn't always the case until some apparent changes on the land may have created a more adverse flooding situation for said neighbors. The wetlands seem to be extremely delicate to the human touch. Neighbors not impacted in this way are also being offered up as alternative sacrifices to surrender some of their land to make the road north of Treasure Trove wider on East Treasure Island Road, up here. Speaking of roads, much has been said about County Road 44 and how densely populating regions along the road like this will severely increase the driving dangers. Anyone who has driven on it, dried or flooded, knows the fear of whether or not other drivers will act impatiently and illegally when dealing with thicker traffic. And that's assuming there's good line of sight coming out of roads alongside Treasure Trove onto CR 44 to see the dangers in time before pulling out in front of them. Solid lines on the roads do not hinder aggressive drivers looking to bypass long lines of cars from increased county road traffic. My point is that Treasure Trove does not exist in a vacuum. It is not surrounded by the city of Leesburg. It is, for all intents and purposes, surrounded by county. County roads, county lands, county homes, county citizens, and adjacent to the Emerald Marsh Conservation Area. Any vote you make will impact us, both directly and indirectly. To not take this into consideration and only vote with the city in mind would be short-sighted at best, possibly morally reprehensible at worst. Planning and zoning for Leesburg has twice voted against the annexation and development of Treasure Trove. Once at an earlier stage, twice now after updates to the plan. I ask that you consider this 2 for 2 from planning and zoning with due diligence, as they certainly considered our rural lives and impacts to our community very carefully. Thank you very much. Who do I submit this to?
Gary Custer, 8909 East Treasure Island Avenue. The first page is a ordinance. It's a Leesburg City ordinance, and I'd like you to read it. I don't think that this development or any other development along 44, where you have all these white spots on the second page, you're jumping from one place to another. That's called leapfrog development, isn't it? That's what I'd call it. Then you put all these cars on there. On that right there, you have East Treasure Island on the north end. You have their entrance to the development. And then just south of that, in less than 3/4 of a mile, you have 3 major intersections. You're only going to have turn lanes on the one. All the rest of them, we got 3 crosses up there in that little orange spot already. How many more you want to put up there? Because the intersections are dangerous. So you put one down here, it's road, the turn lanes then go from power pole to power pole. Once you get it on there, if you look real close at the drawings, it's a dangerous road. There's nothing being done with it. We went to the county, and the county says, well, it's in the 5-year plan now. I've complained about it enough. I've said it here over and over, and you say it's a county problem. So we went to the county, and the county says, well, we'll get to it. For all the complaining about the villages come in, and the first thing they do is build roads. They take care of the roads. They deal with the county, the city, the state, whoever they got to deal with to get it right. I don't like the villages, but it's my point is that they at least start with the roads, the infrastructure. You guys do it backwards. You do it backwards. You expect the developments then to do a little bit. There's only turn lanes on one spot. Remember that. When the next time somebody gets killed trying to get to work. Thank you.
Lorene is helping us tonight. Thank you so much, Lorene. You're wonderful. My name is Lisa Hayden, and I live at 35121 Dennis Road in Leesburg. And we live just a little bit past the hump there. And first, I want to say thank you very much to the commissioners patiently listening to the neighbors. You've heard us before, and you're doing so again. And I believe that you fully understand our position. We're asking you to deny the Treasure Trove application. Our request is based upon a preponderance of safety concerns for the community. Most importantly is the developer's proposal of another entrance onto the already dangerous County Road 44, 55-mile-an-hour corridor, bringing 3 intersections onto County Road 44 in less than 3/4 of a mile. As noted in today's packet, Leesburg's Planning Board has twice recommended denial of this proposal based on part traffic concerns along County Road 44. Instead of working with Lake County Public Works and the community to relocate Treasure Trove's entrance to the safer option of East Treasure Island Avenue and giving the community the opportunity to obtain a traffic signal on that corner, that's the upper right-hand corner, that was suggested by Jeff Earhart of, let me just say, the engineering manager of Lake County. He suggested that if we can get the traffic all coming out of that upper right-hand corner, that he could petition to get a traffic warrant study done, and that's what we would like. The developer has flat out refused to entertain this option. We have asked, we've almost begged, but that's what we got. The developer has even gone so far as to use the scare tactics that a couple of other people mentioned, that the neighbors who reside on the north side of East Treasure Island Avenue would have to give up land. That is absolutely not true. In order for East Treasure Island Avenue main entrance to be possible, the land only has to come from the developer. The statement has been emphatically disputed as false by both Jeff Earhart and Lake County Public Works engineer and project manager Seth Lynch. The neighbors to the north do not have to give up any land. Recently, the neighbors put all our cards on the table, as you know, because we were here at the last meeting, regarding the East Treasure Island Avenue entrance, saying that we would support this plan. With all our other reservations, and we have many, we would support this plan if they would rework the intersection to be 90 degrees, as they have already donated the land, and that they would make the entrance on East Treasure Island Avenue. We were told that accommodation by the developer is not possible. The only time the developer has worked with the community is when Leesburg's commission has compelled him to do so. We're asking you to act to protect our community by denying this application, thereby forcing the developer to work with the neighbors to make the safer East Treasure Island Avenue entrance a reality. The neighbors of Treasure Cove and Treasure Island communities are grateful for your interest and support in protecting our community. Thank you so much. I do have more documents that we just want to have in record. No one's doing a presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Do we have any rebuttal from our staff? Nothing from them? How about from the petitioner?
Thank you, and I'll be brief. I just want to hit on a couple things that were discussed. First is the right-of-way to the north. That was just a note that was received and some comments. we are dedicating close to 3 acres of land for right-of-way. And the only way in which that land that the residents are talking about, which is about 30 feet, would be taken or otherwise given up is if they volunteer it to the county or if the county comes by eminent domain to acquire it. The county has not indicated that that would be the case. That was just a note on the plan. So we're going to have the traffic engineer just make a couple comments about a few of the other things that were discussed. And I know that runoff was discussed as well. We have to go to the state, to the district, to get permits. Those runoff issues are not issues, and we're going to have the project engineer speak to that as well. But I also want to talk about density because that was discussed at the front. We are requesting the lowest possible density here. It's 1.98 acres unit per acre, 1.98 units per acre. Even when you exclude the wetland, that density comes out to about 2.82 units an acre. So this is not a dense project, and actually the developer has worked with the city to reduce that density again almost by 40 units across the project. So with that, I want to make sure that we're getting the answers to these questions and comments from our experts. But I do want to be clear as well that we've worked with the county on this entrance. We have a planning commission that, for various reasons, had offered denial. But we have the opportunity with this commission to provide you your own staff's support of this project and recommendation for approval based on their own expertise. We're providing you today, and we have all the experts on our project here to answer these questions and respond. So I want to make sure we're hitting these 2 high-level issues that the residents have discussed of runoff and traffic. So I'll just give a few minutes here.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. Mohammed Abdullah, Traffic and Mobility Consultants, 3101 McGuire Boulevard, Orlando, Florida, 32803. My firm prepared the traffic analysis for this development. We prepared it in accordance with the city's standards. We prepared a methodology. It was reviewed by your staff and by the Lake Sumter MPO. The study was also reviewed by your staff, by the Lake Sumter MPO, and by Lake County, and all the agencies that reviewed it approved it and found that it meets your standards, and the findings were in accordance with your requirements. Having said that, we looked at the capacity on County Road 44. You heard that the roadways overtaxed. Certainly the roadway's busy. Roadways during rush hour are busy. They're expensive facilities, and we tend to use them to the fullest capacity. That roadway's at level service C, which, by the world I work in, if we're doing better than F, we're doing great. So level service C, just so we can frame it, for this roadway, that is the highest level service achievable. So it's at the best that it can operate with the traffic that it has on it. It's operating at about half of its capacity. So having said that, with regard to the access originally was on Treasure Island Road. Through discussions with the neighbors and through changes, that was requested to be removed. And as you see now, there's a emergency access there only, and the access was moved to County Road 44. The access on County Road 44 will meet Lake County standards. We worked extensively with the county engineers, with Jeff Earhart, Seth Lynch, and George Gadil, and Sharon Lewis, almost getting down to design standard detail to get that access to work. It will have to, excuse me, it will have turn lanes, and it will allow for traffic to move efficiently and safely in and out of the community, as well as to move on County Road 44. In addition to that, we're also talking to the county, not related to this project, but in general, about County Road 44 and reducing the speed limit and looking at some of the design standards. That's a separate effort. The county is really looking very closely at this corridor. But, again, that's not related to this application. I think the last point I'd like to make is the signal at Treasure Island and 44 was brought up. A traffic signal requires warrants, and the warrants are federally mandated. I mean, these are in accordance with the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's what sets the need and engineering requirement for a traffic signal. This intersection currently experiences, I think the traffic currently at the intersection is 8 left turn and 21 right turns in the morning peak hour. In order for this signal to begin to warrant a signal, you would have to have upwards of 55 left turns every hour for 8 hours of the day. With the development, we wouldn't even come close to that. We would be around 20 to 25 in the morning peak hour, 1 hour of the day. So it is highly unlikely. I haven't done the warrant study. What Jeff promised was he would ask for a warrant study. The warrant study would, I can almost assure you that the warrant study would not meet the traffic threshold required to install a signal here. So it's unlikely. So we would be adding traffic to the road, but not adding the traffic signal. So just wanted to clarify that there would very unlikely be a traffic signal here, even if we had access to Treasure Island.
Can I ask you one question about that?
Yes, sir.
You said that's for a traffic signal. That's a federal, but that's not county that can decide to put the traffic signal.
Well, the warrant
has to meet a certain standard.
Exactly.
Right? Does that also pertain to roundabouts? Is that still got to go up the food chain, or is that a county decision?
So a roundabout is a traffic control device.
So it's not just signals; it's roundabouts also.
Yeah, I mean, a roundabout. To be fair, a roundabout could be installed if it operates. In this instance, there would not be enough traffic on the side road for the roundabout to operate properly. So that's why even DOT, when you approach DOT to install a signal, that's when they say, well, look at the roundabout. But they don't say, look at the roundabout if you don't need a signal. So the roundabout is almost a replacement for the signal.
But it has to meet the same standards.
Almost.
Where you were saying 55 cars turning to the left, a roundabout would need to meet those same standards?
Almost. That's when you would start looking at a roundabout, correct. But it's not to be clear, it's not a requirement of law like it is in the signal that you have that. That's when you would typically start looking at a roundabout.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And Gary?
Hi, my name is Gary Beverly. I work with Civil Design Solutions. I'm project manager for this project, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the runoff. In the pre-development state, the runoff, the site slopes, if I have from this corner piece to the wetlands, and there's nothing to collect the runoff because it's in a pre-development state. You just have trees, vegetations, and so forth that just slopes off to the wetland. In the post-development state, the development of the project, all the lots would drain to the right-of-way, and then the right-of-way has a collection system of pipes, inlets, and so forth that would collect the water. And then they, based on the area, make sure I don't point him, it would actually go to the retention pond up here and right there. The retention pond to the south is very small, so it's going to only collect a small basin area that actually gets there. The rest of it would go to the larger retention pond. And so the water is treated. Well, it's all collected in a right-of-way. It's ran over to the retention ponds from the piping and inlets, and then from there it's treated for all the pollutants and so forth that would come off of lots, roads, oils, and that type of stuff. and then it's discharged to the wetlands. So it's collected, and we can't discharge anything above the pre-development rate of discharge. And this is all based on the state's guidelines that we have to work with St. John's River Water Management District. Any questions?
So, sorry, but so the retention ponds, you know, we're used to seeing retention ponds just about everywhere we go, and they normally are dry. There's not any water in them to speak of. Is it your contention in this that these ponds will always be full, and therefore there's some discharge from those ponds that's always going to be going into the wetland?
Usually there's two types of retention ponds. There's a wet pond that looks like a lake, and then there's a dry pond. Our intention is to make this a dry pond. And so in doing so, we'll have to raise the site up a little bit with the fill.
Right.
But all the fill from the developed site, all the runoff from that drains towards the right-of-way, and then drains to the pond so it can be treated.
Right.
The district will not allow us to impact folks downstream. We have to go through a real big process with them, with all our permitting and so forth. They just will not permit a site. They'll keep telling us to go back and try again until we get it right. This has to be permitted through them, which is also dictated through DEP and upper-level state
Thank you.
mandates.
I have a quick question, please. Sir, I have one more question.
Sure.
I've met with the owners at the site. I've talked to them on the phone. They continue to express concern that there is flooding right now to the west of this development. And I've continued to represent to them that with this project being self-contained, it should reduce that flooding. Is that a fair statement?
During the rainstorm, we are having to collect that water. You know, the first flush of rainfall goes to these retention ponds, and we have to design these retention ponds with the 25-year, 24-hour storm event, which is 8.6 inches. So we're taking that out, treating it before it went all the way to the wetlands and impacted the wetlands on its own. Now, this wetland is a large wetland that goes on to other sites and so forth, other properties, and then eventually it goes down to the road to the south of us. Now, from that road, there is a culvert that goes across underneath that road. If the culvert is blocked, if there's other factors involved, then it could make the base flood come back up into the wetland, which is not our fault. It just has to be maintained, and the county has to look at that and make sure that the flood pattern allows that flow to continue.
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to thank folks that came out tonight and thank this commission. Our goal was to provide you substantial information, evidence here on the record so that we can have these concerns addressed and come to a comfort level to these topics that have been discussed. So the request tonight is that we agree with the city staff's recommendation for approval of these requests, and I'm happy to answer any following questions. Thank you for your time.
More questions for the petitioner? All right. We'll have a little deliberation here. Would anybody like to?
Thank you.
To start?
We've been talking about this project for a long time. It's been before the commission numerous times. I've met with adjoining property owners at least once. I can't remember, maybe twice. I've had numerous phone conversations. If I lived out there, I would not want this development in my backyard, but it does meet the requirements. I think the developers tried to meet the demands of the folks around it. It's compromised. I don't think they got everything. The road's been moved so many times, I don't even know where we began with the roads. But I'm referring to the entrance on 44. But I'm sorry if the residents are completely happy. I think this one's played out about like probably better than it does on a lot of developments. And even though the residents did not get everything, I think the developer's has tried to accommodate them. I've spoke to the runoff over and over, and for some reason that's not being heard. The roads, like on all developments, I tell people we don't control red lights, we don't control roads being widened. I travel this road all the time. I'd like to see it widened. At least I heard it may be widened in the next 5 years. That's the first time I've heard that. So there is other development. And right or wrong, there will be lights coming on this road at some point because there are other developments up and down this road. So, okay, that's all I have.
I'd just like to say we have heard from the folks out there. We've tried our best to listen to all the sides. Just recently, we had a meeting with at the county where we specifically were addressing Treasure Island Road and 44 and Boulevard style to meet that. We received a letter, Al. Who was that from?
That was from Jeff Earhart.
Yeah, it was from Jeff. And basically, what we were asking him, which one's better? Well, where should it be? And basically, the response is either one is good with the county. That's in the letter. Is that pretty paraphrasing? But pretty much what's in the letter. So the county did not take a specific position to say the exit needs to come up on Treasure Trove or it needs to go further south. They said either entrance exit would work. So with that information, it is very difficult for us to push for one or the other. The developer originally had the exit going on Treasure Trove. Originally. It changed. And it changed if you go watch the film because of you guys. That's what happened. It's on record. So, the developer, when asked, can they put the road back at Treasure Trove, has decided that is not in their best interests. And that's probably a financial decision. I don't know. But it's not in my control when the county says either one will work. So that's my position. Any other comments? Roll call.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
No.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. All right, moving on to item 6A.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, we had a vote on the annexation, correct? But we would still have the other two items that we'll need to have a vote on.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that was on annexation. So let's let it clear out. Just. It requires 5 commissioners to vote in the form of a majority, so it only required 3. Okay, so we'll go back to item 6A2. So we already introduced, so all we need is a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Been introduced and read.
Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And item 6A3.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
No.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, now we can move on to 6A4, 5, and 6.
Introduced and asked to be read by title only.
I'm sorry. 6A4, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately 33.45 acres and being generally located east of County Road 48 and west of Haywood Worm Farm Road, lying in sections 14 and 15, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 3 and providing an effective date. 6A5, an ordinance amending the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use designation of certain property containing 33.45 plus minus acres from Lake County Regional Office to City of Leesburg Industrial for a mixed-use development on property generally located south of County Road 48 and west of Haywood Worm Farm Road, as legally described in Section 15, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6A6, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately 33.45 acres from Lake County A Agriculture to City of Leesburg PUD Planned Unit Development to allow for a mixed-use development for a property generally located south of County Road 48 and west of Haywood Worm Farm Road, as legally described in Section 15, Township 20 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Abby.
Move for approval.
Second.
All right. We're again moving into a quasi-judicial portion of this. Did anyone that wants to speak, did they already get sworn in? We're good? Okay. Let's hear from Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This, again, is a mixed-use development to include commercial and industrial uses on 33 acres on County Road 48, generally located about 1,200 feet, give or take, west of the intersection of County Road 48 and US 27. The request is to go from Lake County Regional Office to City of Leesburg Industrial, and a zoning request to go from Lake County A Agriculture to City of Leesburg Planned Unit Development. Again, 33 acres, approximately 6.5 acres of office warehouse / industrial uses on the northern part of the property, and then 25 acres below that of industrial uses. As you can see here, the acreage just at the top would be the 6. The office warehouse samples are shown in the packet under conceptual sample Exhibit D. If the property looks familiar, it's because you've seen this one before, too. Originally, it came in as a proposal for a single-family residential. The commission turned that down, and then it came back for residential and self-storage, and the developer at that time withdrew that one. So this one differs. It divides the property into 2 areas for phasing purposes. The uses are essentially the same on each one. They just have it divided for phasing. We did receive, and I missed it in the emails, but we made some changes to the site plan to match up the wording on the PUD with the wording that should be here. So we were able to get this copy, so I want to pass these out, please. What you have in your packet is one that looks like that doesn't have all the wording. And then I didn't see that one in time to attach it to the packet, but it's the same as the one in the packet. And then there's another one in the packet that's a sample of how the buildings could go. So basically, we're just asking you to let us use this one so that it has the correct wording from the PUD. Basically, $142,000, give or take, on the office commercial, flex space, office warehouse, mini warehouse, professional, trades. We do need a space for the trades and contractors that we don't have enough of that we're hearing about. And then, again, nothing that would allow smoke, particulates, excessive noise. There should be some outdoor storage. We anticipate some outdoor storage. Otherwise, the standard PUD conditions are in effect for design, landscape, design and architectural standards, landscape buffers. We have incorporated Lake County's comments regarding access and roadway improvements. Mr. Dwight Sadoff is here, and Mr. Chris Germana, the engineer, is here if you have any questions. Thank you, sir.
Any questions for Dan? All right. Can we hear from the petitioner?
Good afternoon or good evening. My name is Dwight Sadoff, and I'm at 5535 Osprey Isle Lane, Orlando, Florida, 32819. And don't really have any presentation. Just wanted you to know that we're here if you had some questions for us. It's just so, in case I don't want you to be confused, the site plan that Dan submitted, basically when we sat down with him before your prior hearing, the initial reading, kind of worked out all the language on the uses and the setbacks and the buffers. I discovered after that our plan notes hadn't really been updated, so we just updated the plan notes to be completely consistent with your main zoning ordinance, so nothing's changed. But again, just if you have questions, we're here.
Any questions for the petitioner?
I just compliment you on your patience based on how many times we've turned this different proposals down on this property, and I appreciate your commitment to doing work in Leesburg.
Thank you very much.
Any public comment? So I guess we'll have no rebuttal from staff or rebuttal from the petitioner if there's no public comment. Any comments from the commission? Seeing none, let's have a roll call.
Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Mayor Burry?
Yes. Now, if we'll have another vote on, let's see, what's that,
6A5.
6A5, yes, please.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. And now 6A6.
Commissioner Peterson?
Yes.
Commissioner Berry? Yes. Commissioner Connell?
Yes.
Commissioner Reisman?
Yes.
Mayor Burry?
Yes. Okay, we have none. No routine items. Let's see. Oh, wait a minute, I'm a page ahead here. Yeah. Here we go. First reading.
Yep.
So if someone would please introduce 6B 1, 2, and 3.
I'll introduce and ask to be read by title only.
6B1, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, annexing certain real property consisting of approximately .97 plus minus acres, being generally located south of Griffin Road and east of Snowburger Avenue, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, providing that said property so annexed shall be liable for its proportionate share of the existing and future indebtedness of said city, providing that such annexed property shall be subject to all laws and ordinances of said city, as if all such territory had been a part of the City of Leesburg at the time of passage and approval of said laws and ordinances, providing that such annexed territory shall be placed in City Commission District 1 and providing an effective date. 6B2, an ordinance amending the future land use map of the comprehensive plan of the City of Leesburg, changing the future land use map designation of certain property containing .97 plus minus acres from Lake County urban high density to City of Leesburg industrial for property generally located south of Griffin Road and east of Snowburger Avenue, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date. 6B3, an ordinance of the City of Leesburg, Florida, changing the zoning on approximately .97 plus minus acres from Lake County RP Residential Professional to City of Leesburg M1 Industrial to allow for business expansion in industrial for a property generally located south of Griffin Road and east of Snowburger Avenue, lying in Section 21, Township 19 South, Range 24 East, Lake County, Florida, and providing an effective date.
All right. Thank you, Andy. What you got for us, Dan?
As our city clerk said, this is 0.97 acres, annexation, small-scale comp plan, and rezoning. It's just south of Griffin Road and east of Snowburger. It's just an expansion of an existing plumbing business in the area. It will allow more opportunities for and better list of permitted uses than what's currently permitted. Again, it's going from Lake County urban high density, which is there in the industrial, to City of Leesburg industrial, and Lake County RP residential professional to City M1, which is industrial. That's it. Brought you an easy.
Thank you. Any questions for the staff? Petitioner want to say anything? Anybody have questions for the petitioner? Any public comment? No rebuttal. No rebuttal for the petitioner. Any comments from commissioners? This will lay over until, do we have a date certain?
Yes, sir. It will be June 26th.
June 26th will be the second reading on this item. We don't need to vote, so we'll move on. We have no non-routine items. We'll move to informational reports. You got anything on informational reports?
No, sir.
No. Nothing on informational reports. Do you want to see the financial reports?
It's up to you.
Anybody want to see the financial reports, or y'all like them? We're good? Okay. Just checking. Just checking. Okay. So any city attorney items?
No, sir, none this evening.
All right. City manager items?
No, sir.
Excellent. Roll call.
Commissioner Peterson?
Tonight.
Commissioner Burry?
Nothing.
Commissioner Cutnell?
No, ma'am.
Commissioner Reisman?
Nothing tonight.
Mayor Burry?
Just wanted to say my condolences and have that on the record. It's good to see you here tonight. I know, know what it's like. So
thank you.
It's difficult. And that's it for me. Move for adjournment.
So moved.
Second. Got it. Gone.
Woo-hoo.